All right, welcome everybody to Hump Day Hangouts. Today is the 8th of September, 2021, and we are about to roll in and answer your questions. But before we do that, I wanted to say hello to everybody real quick. Got some quick updates for you as well. So let's get started. Like I said, say hi to everyone and then jump in. By the way, if you're watching, give us a hello. If you're lurking around, we know we got people who just like watching, and that's totally okay. If you feel like it though, say hello. If you're watching the replay, you can always leave a comment on YouTube. We appreciate it and like getting back to you. So with that said, Marco, how you doing today?
Busy, man, busy. Got a lot of stuff going on. We just updated Schema Tech, the software. Node referencing, we've got person, we've got article, we've got local business organization, services, and the ability to node reference everything. Article schema. Did I mention FAQ? I can't remember if I mentioned that. Anyway, it's just so much fun because it's how Rob teaches it in the course, not how the software wants you to do it, but it's actually trying to get in Rob's head and pulling what's there and putting it into software, putting that logically into something that works the way that he wants it to work. In other software, I'm sure you guys have used apps or whatever, plugins, you get the choices that they give you. And that's it. But with the ability that we've added to node reference, which is actually how schema should work. You should show the bot how everything fits together under that main entity umbrella. Man, it's just next gen. Nobody's doing what we're doing. So it's really cool. We will announce it in our groups, in our Facebook groups, in the free groups, and in the paid groups, because we're only letting a limited amount of people in, not for scarcity, not to create fear of missing out, simply because we want to make sure that the servers can handle the load of people coming in before we allow anyone in. We allowed 20 people in. We said that's all we were letting in. They've been in for about a month. We're going to let 100 more people in, and that's all we're going to let in for now until the next round of updates and upgrade, whether it takes a month or 3 months. That's all that we will allow in. And that's how we're going to do it so that we can properly balance the load. And it was just fun. It's just fun doing schema this way. It's something, so think about it this way. You're in a parking lot full of white cars. The way to stand out is to get a different color car. That's what we're doing. We're putting that different color car in that parking lot. And if somebody else parks beside you in a car the same as yours, you can go and trick it out some more. Can't get any better than that, man.
Fair enough. All right, man. Chris, how you doing today?
Doing good here. Good day. Had a pretty good workout today on a couple of PRs. So like quite happy about that. Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, I'm going to ask Bradley how he's doing in a second. But first of all, I think we should stop for a moment, let everyone know that today is Bradley Benner's birthday. So happy birthday, Bradley.
Happy birthday, man.
Please don't sing, guys.
Yeah, just kidding. I think Jenny would kill me if I sang on the internet. I can't hold a tune, and I won't subject you or anyone else watching this to that. So
quickest way to run people away from Hump Day Hangouts is for us to start singing. So
definitely. Well, on top of your birthday, man, how you doing, Bradley?
Good and busy. I'm not looking forward to being another year older, but it's only a day older than yesterday. You know what I mean? So,
yep.
But I'm going on a ATV trip tomorrow morning. I'm leaving at 6 a.m. and I'm going to go to Hatfield McCoy Trails in West Virginia for till Sunday. So it'll be fun. That's my birthday present to myself for this year. So
very cool.
Looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, we got a couple announcements real quick. I also wanted to talk about POFU Live. We're getting ready to release the reel, and by reel with air quotes, all I mean is the actual presentation schedule. So we've got the presenters on the page. You can check that out at pofulive.com. We've got 2 more that are going to be updated in the next week. So stand by for that, but go check out the page now, grab your tickets. You've still got, I believe, a little bit of time left before the ticket prices increase. And POFU Live takes place on September 24th for the VIP day. And then 25th and 26th is going to be the main presentations where we get into the good stuff. So if you haven't yet, grab your ticket there. Like I said, the full Details are going to be posted as far as who's presenting when, a little bit more details about that. But you can see the outline and what's going to happen on the page right now. Other than that, if you are ready to take your digital marketing results to the next level, come join our mastermind. All right. You can find out more about that at mastermind.semanticmastery.com. All right, guys, that is it on my end. Is there anything else we need to cover before we get into questions? Because I saw it looks like we got quite a few today.
Yeah, we got a few. I think we're good.
Let's do it.
Right. Okay, great. We're good on the screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Believe this is the first one. Friendly Web says, I currently have a client who is ranking organically at 4 for their main keyword, but when searching in maps, even when spoofing the GPS location set to their location, they don't even show up in the maps results. What is the best way to address this? And will a branded Google stack optimize for the keyword, having the GMB map embedded in it, push things along? Thanks in advance for all that you do, Heath. I mean, that'll help, but you have to also work on the Google My Business itself, the profile itself. I mean, there's a whole long list of stuff that you can do to the Google My Business profile. The Drive Stack and the SEO Shield, the G Site, all of that will help because you're strengthening the entity that way. So something that you want, there's a lot of things that I don't know about this, right? So it's kind of hard to tell you. That will help. There's no question, but I can't say that that's all that's going to be needed, because if your GMB listing is ghosted, in other words, you're not able to find it in maps at all for, then, there's probably other issues present besides just, the entity strengthening the entity. And I'm sure Marco will comment on this, is one of the most important things. But that might not be the only thing that's caught, you know what I'm saying? So having just the SEO shield is certainly going to help, but it might not be the only thing that needs to be done. There's probably other issues that need to be addressed. Is it ambiguated? Is it too closely related to another business out there, perhaps in name or perhaps in proximity? There's just a number of things that could be causing that. One of the, just to clarify, for example, one of the processes or methods that we were teaching several years ago, we called it the local lease pro method, which was to identify, and there was a specific technique we used to be able to identify areas that had little to no competition for GMBs. And so it was very easy to go just start registering GMBs in those areas and getting them to rank almost with little to no effort. But what happened was I would, target perhaps like a city, and I would try to pick, various locations within the city, sometimes just by zip code. And I would get GMBs in those areas that looked like there was little to no competition in that specific zip code. Well, what occurred was, after doing this several dozen times, I found that, a handful of listings or percentage of them would be ghosted, like what you're describing. They just wouldn't. It's not that they were suspended. They were published, but you couldn't find them in maps unless you visited them directly. And what I'm finding out was that it was kind of being filtered out by Google because the brand name was too closely related to, in other words, if it was sharing the same brand name as the other locations and they were too close in proximity, Google would filter one of them out. It would choose the more dominant one and allow that one to show in maps, but the other ones it would filter out. You couldn't find them in maps. You could visit them directly. They were published, but you couldn't find them in maps if you tried to scroll through all the different results, even zooming in and zooming out, which sometimes will reveal a GMB that's been ghosted or pigeon filtered out. That was kind of something that happened several years ago. But if you did a zoom in or zoom out, just one click, either zoom in or zoom out, and then bring it back to its original zoom, the maps listing would appear. But so that was a way to determine if it was being filtered by the pigeon update. And there's ways to overcome that as well. But, that is the first step, or a good step in the right direction. It obviously is to get the SEO shield to kind of strengthen the entity, increase your entity footprint, all of that. But you have to validate that entity as well. And again, that's a good step. But there's probably other issues that need to be addressed as well. Marco, do you want to tackle that one too? Yeah, because there's so much that could be wrong with this. Just getting the information that we're getting here isn't nearly enough. But what I would start with, what is that Friendly Web, is do a brand search, just the brand.
whatever we're supposed to see if it pops up and with a knowledge panel. And if it pops a knowledge panel with some of the social media and some of the posts and everything else. So see how well the entity, the branded entity is doing. Once you do that, and so if it appears, then the next step would be to do the brand plus that main keyword. Do a search that way to see if the brand pops up, if a map pops up with your brand, or if it pops a knowledge panel, because it still should, because you're searching your brand. If it doesn't, then there isn't enough brand plus keyword association there. That's usually entity. You haven't done enough with the entity, enough to relate the entity to the keywords in the set so that the main keyword gets associated to that brand. The way that we start doing that is, yes, the SEO shield, but also schema, good on page and schema. Do you have a category on that page, on that website, a category with supporting posts specifically targeting that keyword and the related keywords in that data set? And I say keywords, but we shouldn't focus it that way, right? We should be focusing on the entity and the related keywords or the related words in that data set, the related entities, the relevant entities in that data set, because that niche, all it is a category in a database with a data set that's related to that main entity or that named entity. And so when you have that, now we're scientists, because now we have to determine how it is that we're going to relate all of this. It's exactly what we show in the Heavy Hitter Club, how all of these different relationships are created through schema, through proper on-page, and then off-page, through the syndication network, through the drive stack plus GSite, through the entity stack, what we used to call the ad ID page, which it's an iframe stack with everything that's related to the entity. Once all that comes together, then you can hit that with a press release to further cinch, right? To make it stronger. But the only way to know this is if you start with brand, then brand plus keyword. And as you do this, it's a process that can take months to get this right, if there's any ambiguity that's filtering into all of this. So I have no idea what your client has done. I would have to look at it all to be able to even say, these are the steps that you need to take to fix whatever ails this, because it's not appearing in the maps. And if it's local, then it definitely should. And even if it isn't local, it should appear in whatever map or wherever the entity is located. The centroid of the entity is what it's called. Wherever that's located, it should appear at least in that vicinity. Now, spoofing isn't necessarily going to work. You might have to even hire someone locally to go in and start doing searches from the centroid, from the business location and outward, or even if it's a spoofed business location, to see if it starts appearing locally. You have to see what Google is doing to someone who is actually there with the GPS turned on in the phone and what they're getting in the searches. There isn't a simple fix. Okay, I'm going to go and get an SEO shield and it's going to fix all my problems. It could, but then again, it might not.
Yeah, a couple add-ons to that. Two things I would recommend is the GMB website. That's a really important part of that as well, especially for the GMB itself, like the map issue not ranking. So when you do a brand search, as Marco mentioned, to kind of check the strength of the entity itself, the Google My Business website should be ranking on page 1 for that as well. If it's not, then that's something you should focus on. Fleshing out the content more on the GMB website, making sure that it's entity tuned, or tuned for SEO entities and such. Build links to it, like the actual GMB website, as well as to the maps listing, preferably the CID map URL. And Marco mentioned a press release. That's one of the best ways to do it. What I would recommend with a press release is to build the keyword anchor. So your exact match keyword anchor to the map URL, the CID map URL in the press release, because you're going to get like 250 or plus anchor text links that way. And the GMB map URL can take that. Only, a percentage of them are do follow anyways. But the point is that you can kind of start to push that map a little bit that way. I've done some testing with that. And that works well. But then do the brand search or the brand name anchor text to your GMB website. So in your press release, in this case, I would recommend 2 URLs. one to your GMB map itself, the CID map URL. So that's the best one for link building purposes, for SEO purposes. That with an exact match keyword anchor. And then one for a brand anchor to your GMB website, if that makes sense. So 2 outbound links in your press release. And that's going to kind of help to strengthen the Google My Business assets for your brand, if that makes sense. And so that's what I would recommend you doing. And lastly, CT manipulation or click-through manipulation. That's something that you can do either with tools that work. The only tool that I know that works, because it's the only one that I've used, is Michael Bowe's Viper Tools. Another one that I've been using for years is Google Ads. Setting up Google Ads campaigns with the display network or display ads. You set it up as a maximize clicks campaign, and you can set localized searches within a very tight geographic region. And then especially if you can buy traffic from a known audience, a relevant audience within Google Ads, like an in-market audience or whatever, an in-market segment as it's called now. That's another great way that you can start to kind of strengthen that entity and force Google to recognize the brand. And also you can make some keyword associations there. That's beyond the scope of a free webinar. But if you want to learn about that kind of stuff, you can come join the mastermind, because I talk about that and teach about that in the mastermind. So those are some good questions, but there's probably a lot more to that than just what the little bit of details that we got here. So there's some things to set you in the right path anyway.
Yeah, but be careful. First, you have to determine what's wrong. I mean, you can't cure the patient unless you know first what's wrong with the patient. You might cut off the left leg, and then there's the right leg that needed to be cut off. So you got to be really careful when you start doing all of this. All of these things will help, but then again, that you might not get the results that you expect if there's any ambiguity in there. Because first you'll have to go and fix that and take care of that. Then you mash it.
Liam's up. He says, in past videos, you've said avoid hitting pages on the money site with MGYB links and embeds. Is this safe to do for other stuff like PDF files and images in the media library uploaded to the money site or the subdomains? If so, what's a way we can leverage this alongside PR and other stuff like drive stacks? No, I mean, what I would recommend is you know, like if you say PDFs and stuff, is upload those to the drive stacks, right? To your drive folders that are part of your drive stack, and then use the GMB URLs for those PDFs if you wanted to do that kind of stuff. Not from the media library of your site, because then you're still potentially poisoning your site with what's considered spammy links. You know, I mean, again, we talk about throwing kitchen sink spam at GMB stuff, or excuse me, Google properties. So the G site, GMB assets, you know, that kind of stuff. It'll take it, but I wouldn't recommend ever doing that for anything on your money site. You want to keep that stuff at least 2 hops away from the money site, if not even more, if that makes sense. So I would recommend that you don't do that, but you can use those same sort of files that you were just mentioning in your drive stack, right? You can upload them as images to your drive stack folders. You can upload PDFs there. You can embed those things on the G site, and then you can hit all of those, your entity assets, your Google assets, with links. That way you're transferring power through the Google assets back to your money site without actually ever touching your money site with any of those kind of, you know, bulk links is what I'm saying. Comment?
Yeah, you can iframe those on the G site. Right. And again, place that PDF file in the drive stack. But you can totally iframe, because we talk about theme mirroring. And one of the ways that we theme mirror is by grabbing that, whatever that category page is, or whatever that website media file is, and then iframing it on a page in the G site, and then hitting that to protect your money site. We're always looking to protect the money site from all of that lovely spam that we do off page. Let the website, listen to me, let the money site accrue natural links over time. Mash the G site, mash the GMB, the drive stack, your tier 1 branded, hit those. But I'm not advocating hitting those with Fiverr, although it works with Fiverr gigs. It can work. You better know what you're doing. Hit those with tiered link building so that at least there's relevance in the links that you're getting, because it's relevant links that really power everything up. This is where people are really missing the point. The links have to be relevant. If not, then Google simply discounts them, or you can actually incur a manual And we saw that just recently with a guy who, for whatever reason, Google decided there was a manual action. I've never seen that on a G site, but it can happen. And so to avoid that, just make sure that you get the link building, it's tiered, and that the links are contextual so that you're creating total relevance instead of a bunch of links that will probably get discounted, or worse, might trigger a manual, which you never want. You never want people coming in and looking at your G site and Drive Stack because it's total spam. So be careful. That's it.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I did a test about a month ago now, and it's still ranking in the number one position for the keyword. But I did a test where I optimized a unique article, is entity tuned, and I posted it on Blogger. And then I bought a 75,000 blog comment gig from Fiverr. And I just hammered it with straight exact match anchors. It was a range of exact match anchors, but straight keyword anchor text, exact match anchor text through blog comment spam. And that post is ranked number one and has been for a month.
Did you see the post in RYS Academy Reloaded?
No, I didn't.
With that Google Doc ranking number one popping out. Well, not ranking number one. It's a Google Doc popping a rich snippet.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Well, yeah, that was done with Fiverr.
Yeah,
Fiverr link building and embed gigs, man. So you can get away with it, but you might trigger a manual, and when that happens, it's all over. Because when someone looking at it and someone looking at that backlink profile is going to know that you've been up to no good.
Yeah.
I
smashed it. It was like 75,000 blog comments in like 5 days. And like Majestic picked them up too, like, which is crazy because Majestic typically filters out very low quality links. But for whatever reason, Majestic picked up, and it ended up being way more than 75,000 blog comments. I don't know why, but from the referring domains, it was like, I don't know, 30 some thousand referring domains. It was just insane. And it was like, and it ranked within, I think, a week. It was ranked to number one for the specific keyword, and it's still there today. And that was about a month ago. So
you can. I'm recommending for people not to do it, but you can't.
I'm not telling people to do that. I'm just
no. Go ahead by all means, Blogger, because you can always build another one. But if you go and hit your money site with this, and that gets de-indexed, it's over. Game over. You got to start over. Blogger, you can just do another one, and do it the same way. Rank it the same way. Because it's free. You're spending, well, not free, because you're still spending time on that. I've hit shit with 5-10 million backlinks from Fiverr. Doesn't matter. You can get results, and you can get immediate results. It's how much risk you're willing to take for the reward. If it's a client site, do you want to do that? Do you want to risk your client, their livelihood, the thing that your client counts on to feed family? You don't want to do that shit. So yeah, by all means, test on your shit, on everything that you do. Test it, hit it. Smash it. I still wouldn't touch the money. I still don't. I no longer touch any of the money sites that I work on, even mine, even unless it's just a test, and then I'm liable to hit it with anything.
Okay, so the next is Arby says 2 questions about local directories. You don't need to name the specific product, but I'm looking at a mass page builder for a set of local directories and wonder what your opinion is of using them. What I'm actually looking at is MassPagePlugin, but there seems to be a number of them, although this one seems targeted to making directory sites. I'm testing with MassPagePlugin right now, but not for directory sites. I've been building my own directory, but I'm just using a directory theme in WordPress, and I import CSV files to add the records, the business records for the businesses list that I'm listing on the directory. And I do that on a state-by-state basis. So I'll scrape a list of contractors for, I was using D7 Lead Finder, and I still recommend that for bulk scraping. You have to subscribe to their top level. I guess it's the enterprise level or whatever. And it used to be $99 a month, but I think it's $119 now, or maybe even $129. But here's a trick. If with D7 Lead Finder, if you subscribe to their top tiered plan, it allows you to add up to 100 one keyword, but up to 100 locations at a time. So I've got a specific process that I use for extracting all the cities and locations within a state that have, greater than, say, 10,000 population or 20,000 population or whatever it is. And then I will add I'll take my primary keyword and then I'll add all the city locations that I've extracted from this, or, generated from the population list, cities by population list for each state. And then I'll create the CSV files, right? D7 will spit it out. And that's, I've been doing that on a state-by-state basis. And here's the thing with that, you can spend the money on the subscription and you can go out and generate all your lists in a month. It gives you, there's a limit to how much you can do within a 24-hour period. But then once it resets, it's a lot. So you can literally probably generate all the contact records you need. The reason I'm telling you this, because I haven't tested any of the MassPage stuff, any of the plugins or builders or any of that for directory stuff, because I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it, which is just using a directory theme. There's also other directory plugins that will do something similar. And I use a CSV importer to import the contact records that are going to be generate the directory listings or pages on the site, if that makes sense. So I don't have any experience using any other plugins, like any of the MassPage builders, whether they're plugins or whatever, for directory stuff. I'm not even sure how that's done. Probably something similar, but I don't know. So I really don't have an opinion on that. I am using MassPagePlugin. Just started testing with that about a month ago. And there's quite a learning curve with that. So I haven't gotten very far into it yet. I think there's a lot of potential though. But there's a lot of time and effort goes into just learning how to use those tools, in my opinion. So I don't know if that was helpful, except for the fact that, I don't know that you necessarily need to use a MassPage builder for a directory site, because there's other options out there that aren't necessarily MassPage builders that will provide, I guess, the result that you're looking for. So it's up to you how you want to do that. I don't really have an opinion on the MassPage stuff yet. MassPage stuff, I should say.
Yeah, as far as MassPage builders, what we're testing in the Heavy Hitter Club is MassPage Creator. And that works really well. Once you understand how it works, it makes it simple, because what you do is a call to scrape the information from Google and it populates your page, whatever information it is that you want on your page. So once you know what you're doing, it makes it rather simple. But getting to the point where you understand that PHP call that has to be made, and you understand how then you need to scrape the information from Google so that Google doesn't tag you, because they will, right? And they'll kill it real quick if you make too many calls through that API, if it is that you're using the API. It's just a matter of all right, so here it is. They can all work, and they can all work really well. You use the Magic Page, right? Mike Martin?
Yes, Mike Martin, MassPagePlugin. Yeah.
MassPagePlugin. You use that. It works for you because you took the time to learn it, to go through it, learn how to use it, learn how to populate your pages. Fine. That's fine. Nobody's saying it doesn't work. Where it really matters is when you're trying to make each page different, each page unique. So when you have different information on each page, that's fine. But what people do is they'll create mass pages, 30,000, 500,000 pages, and they'll all be basically the same except for a few tokens. Well, what happens over time is Google starts not de-indexing, but getting rid of those pages from what I call the live index. You'll see it. You'll start it. I did one with 15,000. Well, Rob did the mass page. We had 15,000 index pages, and then it went down to 100 something because there was basically no difference between those any of those pages. So Google will find the ones that it considers the best out of the bunch, the original copy, or the what would be the canonical, and it'll show that rather than all of the other pages, because it finds the other pages to be almost the same, if not all the same. So it's doing all that work for what? So that you end up with 100 something index pages. Take the time out to really learn the software, which is what Rob has been doing, and then make the pages unique enough so that they stay indexed and they help you continue getting whatever it is that your goal is for whatever it is that you're doing.
So the next question was from him was for local business style directory sites, instead of setting up a single directory with all cities and all services, perhaps with silos, I guess, by city, then service, or service, then city, or alternately alternatively setting up lots of directories, each for a single city and single service, I wanted to know both if it's possible and if there's any advantage to using a URL arrangement along the lines of, okay, I'm not going to try to read out all those different potential domain configurations, but I would not recommend that at all. You're talking about like 2 levels of subdomains before you get to the root domain. And then you're going to have silos on that, directories, categories. And like, that's way too long, too much. It's going to be super complicated to build. It's going to probably not index well. I don't know, because I've not ever attempted something with like what you're describing here, but it's just way overcomplicated right from the beginning. Don't do that. What I'm saying is what I would recommend is, first of all, go with kind of niche specific directories or city specific directories if they're going to be general directories. The reason I say that is because if you try to go with just kind of like a broad business directory that covers all different types of industries and all different types of locations, you're going to be competing against like the really, really big directory sites. It's going to be very difficult to ever get any traction that way. However, if you do a industry specific directory that it can cover the entire country, whatever, could go, I'm assuming you're going to stay within one nation, right? So one country. I found through my own directory building, a niche specific directory, that one gets traction so much easier than trying to do something that's general. Likewise, if you wanted to target on a city directory, you're going to get more traction because everything is relevant and localized to that particular city. It's going to be easier to get results from a localized city business directory, even for general businesses, right? So meaning you'll take any sort of businesses that want to be part of that directory. You'll get better traction from that on a local level because it's locally, everything on that directory will be relevant to that location. Does that make sense? So what I'm trying to get at is you have to figure out like how can you enter into a space with your directory site and build authority quickly, where you're not competing against other super high authority sites. Like, for example, Yelp is a general business directory, right? So is Yellow Pages and Angie and Home Advisor and all those kind of things, right? So it's difficult to build a contractor directory, in my case, right? That would just cover any sort of home service contractors across the entire nation. It would be very unlikely for me to get traction anytime soon. It would take a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of optimization and authority building in order to compete with those. However, I built a very specific niche specific directory that has gained a lot of traction. And I just started it really in January, probably February, before I really started indexing anything. So it's only been about 6 or 7 months and I've got a lot of traffic and a lot, it's ranking well is what I'm saying. So, and you can do that on, like I said, on a local basis as well, where you can be a general business directory, which will cover all sorts of business and industries. But because it's a localized directory, everything is relevant to that specific location, you're going to have a better chance, right? And so my point is, the way I look at it is, if you're going to go through the trouble of building a directory, you're going to want to get results quickly, because that's how you're going to be able to monetize it sooner than later, without putting a shit ton of effort in it forever before you ever get any traction. So I would recommend that you keep it simple. I don't recommend building a whole bunch of subdomains, because then you have a whole bunch of sites to manage. That's a pain in the ass. Keep it simple. Do it on either one niche industry specific directory that you can go national with, or however wide a region or area you want, or go with a location specific directory that is specific to that one particular location. If that makes sense. That's kind of how I would do it. That's what I would recommend, only because I've been building a directory myself. Any comments on that one?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's the example that we've given before. Are you going to take on Amazon? Because if you are, you need the budget and you need the time and you need a team. You need multi-million dollars in budget. You can't get away with $150 a month. You can't do that. But how do we then go after Amazon? How can we win against Amazon? We can go in a vertical, we can go in a niche, we can go into even a sub niche and niche down. Bradley calls that niching down. And in that one specific spot in Amazon and get after that, because it's a lot easier to go after that sub niche than it is to go after the Amazon brand. Just like it is a lot simpler to go after something at the city level or at the local level or even at the suburb level if you're working locally. It's much easier than to go after that big city. I know, because I go after the big cities. I go after LA, New York, and Chicago. Next up, some cities in Texas. But I'm going after those, and there's a lot of effort involved. You better have the team. You better have the team in place and the processes and the systems, and everybody needs to know exactly what they need to do and when and how it gets mashed for the best results, or else you're stuck a year and a half down the line and you still don't have anything. It doesn't make sense. If you're going to do it, then find, as Bradley said, find that niche, find that place where you can get in, but do it with a brand. Don't do it with something where you get stuck with an EMD. Think about this long term, where you can add, then once you find that niche, that hot niche, you can expand to other cities, other places, or other sub niches that are relevant. Eventually, you build enough trust and authority and relevance so that it'll get easier to rank as you go on. But when you're starting out the way that you're mentioning it, you're making your life impossible. You're talking about, I see that at least 2, 4, 6, 8 subdomains. No, because you have to manage each one of those.
Yeah.
No.
It's way too complicated.
No, yeah, I agree.
And his follow-up to that was from basically, is there any value to this idea approach? Please feel free to let me know if I'm an idiot and if it's a harebrained scheme. I'm not going to go so far as to call you an idiot, RB. That's why you come ask these questions, and that's what we're here for. But I would tell you that's not something I would ever encourage anybody to do. I've said this many times over the years because I've done it myself. Even in the past couple of years, I was attempting some site builds with some overcomplicated methods that just don't work. And they end up causing, even if they do work, it becomes so complex trying to maintain them. And it's just, keep it simple, stupid. Like, I'm not calling you stupid. That's just the saying, right? Keep it simple, stupid. KISS, right? KISS. And I found that to be the case. Try to figure out a way to simplify the build, which will make it easier to manage. But try to look for ways to get traction with the build quicker, right? Because the sooner you get traction, the sooner you can monetize it. And when you start having revenue come in, you can scale, right? Because you can outsource stuff. You can, buy, additional assets to build. You can buy links. You can do all kinds of stuff that with revenue. It makes everything easier when you've got the funding to do it, the capital to do it. Yeah. But you need to have some traction and monetize your effort first in order to have that kind of capital, unless you're just independently wealthy and you're just looking for something to dump money into, in which case PM me. and I'm happy to find some use for your money. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Now on this question, listen, no. From a crawler perspective, absolutely not. It's not an extra level of siloing. You're actually going an extra level away from trust and authority. The further you go from the root, the further you are from trust and authority. Google will always consider your homepage the most important page on your website. And it starts from there, determining trust and authority. The further you go away from that root, the greater the signals to Google that that's unimportant or less important. People, this is another thing where they get lost. They come up with these long and bunch of jumps in that URL, in that slug, and it's just hop after hop after hop, where it becomes irrelevant. That's not how you silo. That's not how you silo. Go into the Semantic Mastery channel and look up a simple silo structure, and you'll see how to silo your website correctly. Start there. Start that way. Start with simple. Start with simple yet effective. Because after all these years, it still works.
Okay, next question is a good one too. Henry says, hello, for a money site with a blog using WordPress regarding blog post URLs, which would be better from a site visitor user experience perspective and best for SEO, using the post name or custom with blog/post-title for the URL, keeping in mind that blog plus keyword focused page names to be used in the main nav menu. Thinking this way for the nav menu would be ideal. I read using /blog. So like essentially kind of a category helps for organizing the site and explaining to Google's crawlers, which is a blog post and which is a static page. Whoever said that is full of shit. Whoever said that is absolutely full of shit. Okay? And I'm just telling you that right now because that's just dumb. And I say that because Google can tell which is a blog post and which is a page. A lot of it. I mean, remember, if you've got sitemaps submitted, it's already going to be determined because there's post sitemaps and page sitemaps. There's RSS feeds, which unless you're using specifically like a plugin to insert pages in the RSS feeds, blog posts are in the RSS feeds, pages aren't. There's, I think it's in the actual code of the page itself. So that doesn't make any difference at all. And what I recommend is just using post name. Years ago, we used to use the category /post name permalink structure, which is called a physical silo. And when we say physical and virtual silo, they're identical. Silos are identical. The only difference is the URL structure, where in a physical silo, it shows the hierarchy of how the content is stacked or what the taxonomy structure is of the pages and posts within the WordPress site itself, right? So that would be physical silo is showing category /post name permalink structure. But there's no difference between a physical silo and a virtual silo as far as how they're built or how they're interlinked. It's all the same. They're identical. And a virtual silo is just using the post name permalink structure, which is way better, in my opinion, because it's shorter, it's more succinct. It reduces the likelihood of over optimizing the URL, which is often the case when you are siloing a site because you're using keywords and the URL slugs for the primary pages. So the top level categories, essentially. And then, so you could end up having the keyword duplicated multiple times in the URL if you're using the physical silo structure, which is category /post name permalink. Does that make sense? So you're better off just using the virtual silo method, which is post name permalink, because then you eliminate the possibility of over optimizing the URL. And Google understands the taxonomy structure of the WordPress site anyways, especially if you've submitted your sitemaps through Search Console, and it's going to identify which is which through that anyway. So again, I'm not picking on you, Henry. I know that's why you're asking these questions here, which is what we're here for. But, keep it simple. Once again, I recommend using just the post name permalink structure. And it's important how you stack your content and all that other stuff. But putting that kind of like directory or that hop in the middle called blog is unnecessary. You're going to have most likely a blog page on your site, which is going to be in the navigation menu, which is an index page, right? It's a blog roll page or a blog archives page, right? Which is just going to show all of your blog posts. That's all that's needed. When you click into the actual blog post, it should be domain.com/postslug. And that's post name permalink. So that's my take on it. What do you say, Marco?
No, I absolutely, I can't believe there's people advising others on this kind of crap and giving people this kind of advice. Like whoever said, I don't care. But you can tell them that Marco and Bradley both said, you're full of shit. How can Google not know what a page is and a static page versus a blog page? Now, it used to be we did that because we wanted that extra keyword up there. We wanted that. We wanted to establish that in there and in our silo. And because we didn't do that good a job of interlinking, we didn't think of interlinking the way that we do now, the way of how we show entity relevance, main entity of the page and of the silo and whatever it is that we're using to support the silo. But now, if we interlink properly, then there's no need to give Google anything else because the blog and the way that you've set up your interlinking, the category and your blog post will show Google what the silo is. Your interlinking will show Google what the silo is, and your schema will reinforce what your silo is. Now, a better idea than worrying about all this URL structure, keep it simple, like Bradley said, domain.com/and slug, no category, no nothing, no page, just put it in there. And then each page and each blog post gets schema, and you reference everything in your schema. That's the way that you're going to win moving forward. And you reinforce that through your entity tuned content. You can win with just schema, entity tuned content, and then pushing that out into your syndication network, strengthening your tier one branded, making sure there's entity tuned content all over your tier one branded. And if you have a VA, it's a couple of days of work to get everything tuned just right. And you'll be amazed by how much love you're going to get from Google by just doing simple things that really win today. I'm going to say it again, like I've said before, brute force is alive and well. I'm using brute force every day to get killer results. But I'm also finessing with the right kind of schema, schematic architecture, and entity tuned content. And you get amazing results.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that right now, I think is one of the most critical factors besides entity, but entity tuned content is absolutely critical, and it works like crazy, especially if all your tier one content is tuned just like it was money site content.
Yep.
If you do that, I mean, it's hard for others to compete against that. It really is. And you won't, it depends on the project. Sometimes you'll see results almost immediately, but sometimes it just takes a little while. But you'll start seeing amazing results if you do that. It takes time, but if you start entity tune, like tuning the content on your tier one assets, the G site, I mean, all the stuff that we talk about, it's incredible the power that you can get. And what's crazy is you don't even need a lot of links for that stuff. Like, I mean, I know we can do bulk links like what we talk about for, the SEO shield and stuff like that. And that helps. You can also do, different kind of higher powered type links and things. But what I'm saying is if you can tune the tier one content that's linking to your money site, you do that, you only need a couple of links, a handful of links to, well, it depends on the, what you're competing against, but on a local level in the industry that I'm in, it only takes a handful of links, like literally less than 10 referring domains for most projects for me to get significant results. All my other link building's done at tier 2 and beyond to power up those tier 1 assets that I have entity tuned with specific anchor text linking back to the money site. And so again, it makes it so much easier now. I think that the landscape is easier now for that than it has been in past years, because it only takes a couple of really well-placed links within entity tuned content to get significant results. So it's a great question. The next one is from Eddie B, which looks like, and that's a good GMB there. That's insights. Looks great. Eddie says, how or where do I troubleshoot? This is a great question, Eddie. I read this ahead of time. How or where do I troubleshoot an MGYB syndication network that's not firing? I don't know what just happened. Hold on a minute. It fired correctly for my very first blog post from my site, proving it worked and was set up correctly. But now with a second blog post, it's no longer firing to the connected networks, and I'm not sure why. I logged into IFTTT and many of the other syndication social accounts to check the status, and no signs of anything disconnected or warnings of inactivity or anything like that. What steps should I take? Okay, so there's a couple things that I recommend. Number one is if you click into any one of the applets, and then you check the settings, there's a view activity button. If you click that, sometimes it'll tell you if there's a problem with the RSS trigger. It'll tell you that if you click check view activity, it'll give you there will be when you published your blog post, the applet will recognize that there's a new blog post, but if there was a problem with it, it'll typically show in the IFTTT applets check activity section, it'll show there was a problem with the trigger or something like that. It says something similar to that. So that could be a problem. Check that. Sounds like you might have already checked that. And if there's no indication, then usually the first step is just to go reconnect those services. When I say services, like for example, Blogger, go into settings for that applet, or go into your connected services, right? So up in your profile icon, up in the top right corner, click that and click on services and go to the apps that are connected, like Blogger, for example, and then click on settings and then reconnect or reauthorize or whatever the call to action is to reconnect it. So that's usually will fix a problem. If there's a problem with the RSS feed, that won't fix it. But a lot of the times, sometimes IFTTT, you just need to reconnect the service that you're pushing to, you're syndicating to, and it will end up fixing the problem. So I would recommend that. Like I said, check to make sure there are no RSS trigger error messages in the view activity section of the applets. Something else you could do is swap out the RSS feed. And I'm just trying to give you some troubleshooting ideas. Swap out the RSS feed from something else that, again, you could use Blogger or Tumblr feed or WordPress.com feed or something like that. You could just go publish a test, swap out the RSS feed in the applet with one of those feeds from Blogger, Tumblr, WordPress, whatever, and then just go publish a test post and see if that'll trigger an applet. Because if so, then you've just now proven that the trouble is your RSS feed from whatever you're syndicating from, your money site or whatever, right? So again, I'm just trying to give you some ways to test. Another thing you could do would be, if there is a problem with your RSS feed, and we've seen this in past years, I haven't seen it recently, but in the past, this occurred sometimes. And it was probably some sort of plugin or theme conflict that was making it not work for IFTTT for whatever reason. But if you take your money site blog feed and you burn a feed burner feed with it, and then you use your feed burner feed as the syndication feed, right, as the RSS feed in the applet, sometimes that'll fix it. Right. And again, I don't know that that's the case. I'm just giving you some different ideas for troubleshooting. So I don't know. You have any ideas, Marco?
Yeah, because it's all three that are not firing. Well, I don't know. Twitter's probably not firing also. When that happens, what changed on your money site? That changed everything, because the first one fired just fine. Something about that RSS, this right here, I've seen this time and again, where, as you said, a plugin conflict, or someone from the dev team changed the RSS URL, and so of course it's not going to fire because the RSS URL, the feed trigger changed. So if you go through all of these steps and you don't find any of those, then you have to determine what was it that changed between that first one and that second one that you need to undo to see if it fires. It's not, I can almost guarantee that it is an IFTTT, because nothing in IFTTT is firing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I said check your feed. And like Marco said, sometimes maybe the dev team did something, but sometimes just a plugin update or a theme update can cause issues. And so, again, that's why, like I said, if you're not seeing any warning messages or error messages in the view activity for an applet that says there was a problem with the trigger, which is oftentimes what you'll see, then, like I said, just go into the settings of that applet and swap out the trigger feed with a feed from something like Blogger or WordPress or Tumblr or anything else that you have an RSS feed from that you can then publish to just a test post to see if it then triggers the applet. Because if so, you've isolated the trouble to the RSS feed from your money site. And then you can start to work your way through, trying to isolate where the trouble exists on your money site. And there's ways you could do that. You could go through and disable all the plugins, publish a test post and see if it syndicates then. And if it does, then start enabling plugins one at a time and see. And see if one of the plugins are causing an error or an issue where the RSS feed's not triggering the applet. You see what I'm saying? There's a number of things that you can do, but it's through trial and error. Like,
yeah,
I used to work for the phone company, and we had to chase down telephone troubles on copper pairs that would go sometimes 10 miles, and you're talking about 50,000 feet of this tiny little copper twisted wire, and we would have to identify where the trouble was, and it was called cut and prove. We would go half the distance. So on a 10-mile stretch of cable, we'd go 5 miles and cut the pair and look at it each direction, see, okay, the trouble's this way. Then we go another half the distance and we cut and prove until we narrowed it down to where we could find the trouble. And it was just a trial and error process, but that's how we did it. And so I've always approached troubleshooting stuff when it comes to SEO and trigger errors and stuff like that very similarly. So any comments on that?
Totally agree. Totally. I dropped an image in there, man, because Rob and I worked on that GMB on Thanksgiving Day last year. And if you look at the activity on that over the past 3 months, I think it's almost 40K.
Yeah.
Well, that's in the pet food industry. That's in the pet food niche, and it's San Francisco. That GMB is set in San Francisco. It's not as if we take on easy niches in nowhere cities that really aren't gonna get you this kinds of results. This is what we take on. And it's everything that we've been talking about as far as the link building, as far as getting your silos right, as far as getting the schema right, as far as getting the content right, because it's on this on this case study right here that we started using entity tuned content, and it made it's just a huge difference, man. But it's just, so look, like, I don't have to tell you, I can show you. If you were in the heavy hitter club, if you were part of one of the paid groups, I would take you, and I have, and I'm taking people as the case study develops into the analytics for this, and into the search console and into the GMB. And I'm showing people the exact steps that I took to get these kinds of results. And they're right there. It amazes me how people simply just won't take the time to go and just take one thing and see it through to the end, from beginning to end. Prove to me that our shit doesn't work. Just go and do it. Go from A to Z, like we show you. And if you don't get results, I'll give you your money back. But you have to show me that you took all the steps, that you didn't cut corners. Because when I will go talk to you, and I will look at everything that you did, and I'll show you exactly where you cut corners and exactly what it was that you did not do that kept you from getting results. This is still going up. I mean, today from 0, and you see it over the past 90 days, how it just keeps going up. Google will update and it'll start doing the dance. We'll have a core update or whatever other shit you'll see. It'll do a dip and it'll start going up, and it'll do a dip and it'll start going up. That's how it works, man. And that's how it can work for everybody when you're using core web principles instead of just simple hacks.
Yeah. And just a quick follow-up. Eddie says, thanks for the epic responses, Bradley and Marco, about my syndication feed trouble. Looks like IFTTT was just lazy, delayed, and fixed itself entirely 4 hours later. Everything is good. Well, there you go. Now you're armed with the knowledge of how to troubleshoot the next time you see that, which probably will happen at some point. So, all right, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.